The channel viewers, there's the pelican for you. Rev Dr. J.W. Morrison. I've already logged on to the marine rescue and we'll go out for a paddle now, see what we come up with. Thank you for coming on. Some of you are going through a breakup right now and I pray for you. I just hope you're not the cause of it. And if you are, I hope you've got the self-awareness enough to be able to improve yourself, because that's what it's all about, self-improvement. As we move off, self-reflection, self-introspection. If you've been with a narcissist, that's probably, and you're worried about what they're going to do, don't worry about what they're going to do. They're going to stay the same, because if they knew what to do, they would have done that with you. Some narcs go for a reverse discard when they've had enough. They can't find a way out with any integrity, and they'll bung on an act and throw a reverse discard on you, which is setting up situations where it's just no longer tolerable. You can't take their shit anymore, and you're just going to get to the point where you go, look, really sorry, but I'm checking out. Or you're just going to go, I've had enough, you need to fuck off. I know that's not your normal Christian lingo, but that's the point people can drive you to. They will drive you to that point, and that's not what we desire or what we're after, but unfortunately that's what degenerates do. They degenerate, things don't suit them anymore, their problems have become the problem of the relationship. They've been unable to resolve the issue. There's some power, usually it's a power-hungry person in the family, and they've submitted to that. So you've got a triangulated relationship. I don't know if you can see all the jelly blubbers again today. I'll just go down to the water for a minute. You're better off away from all that emotional incest stuff. I'm Rev Dr. J.W. Morrison here with the jelly blubbers out in Gosford, Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia, the Brisbane waters. I hope you're enjoying the panoramic view. As to breakups, if you're the reason, you've got a lot of work to do, because characteristic change takes tremendous effort, and that effort may take months, if not years, to develop. And it's one step forward, two steps back. For the narcissist, they usually don't self-introspect. They just cut their losses and move on to the next supply. Some of them will be on the internet that afternoon looking for somebody else. But that's not your concern, nor is it your worry. Your job is to introspect, reflect on what's happened, deal with what's happened, and develop yourself. Escape the rumination. Find a way to do your post-mortem on the relationship. Do your diagnosis, your final report on what's happened, what hasn't happened. By this time, if not already, you would have been smear campaigned. Don't worry about that. It was happening all along anyway. And thank your lucky stars that you had the courage to say, I'm out. The person that you were with, particularly if their psychopathy is reflective or in the vicinity of showing traits of narcissism, they probably won't change. As I said earlier, they would have changed for you if they were capable of change. The only change they'll make is when they get their shiny new toy, their next source of supply. They'll mirror that person, getting as much information as they can from that person about that person, so that they can be a mirror of that person to that person to lock in their supply. Usually what happens is, because there's been no introspection or ability to resolve, the resentment and bitterness that's carried on over into that relationship will begin to manifest for anybody that's got insight. But a lot of these people think their sexual capabilities are going to be enough to keep them in a relationship. That's a sign of maturity and depravity in the mind of the person. Depravity being the brother of degenerative. It's a degenerative, lazy form of bluff. They'll try and bluff you. These people degenerate pretty quick. They're called degenerates. They're given up to a reprobate mind. They have a form of godliness but deny the power of it. They're not in the spirit of it, and they're definitely not walking in the ways of it either. They have a tremendous sexual need, and most of them aren't all that good in bed. They're usually just sponges that take what they can, and when they meet somebody that is able to drain the soul out of them, they become fascinated, because it doesn't happen very often. They just usually get abused, ran through, pumped and dumped and kicked to the curb, and that becomes just something that they accept because of their low self-esteem, and they try and see themselves in the person that they're with. That's why they try and mirror that person. And like a computer being given a new program, they'll reprogram themselves to that person, but that won't hold. There'll be a virus in the program which is called narcissism, and it will only take a month or two for the virus to start to go to work on the shiny new toy. What then happens is you'll get family members. They don't mind releasing these people for a time to get their sexual appetites fulfilled, but once they've decided that that's long enough, then you get the triangulation. Now this plays into the person that you're with because they're a degenerate, and they won't resolve the issue, which will enable them to have a means of escape, a course of distance, because if they've got disabled children living with them in their home, or children that have just not been able to find a way for themselves, because she's groomed them to be dependent on her, and they've bought into that, of which they'll resent her later and live in regret. They'll all triangulate together to keep you at a distance because you're a threat if you're A-grade supply. Now if you're an addict and they're addict and you're bringing around the drugs, you're going to be welcomed, but they're going to be sick of sitting around stoned with you, and you're going to be get sick of supplying the drugs. It all turns in on itself. It doesn't work, and even the straight people know that, and they become frustrated, quite demented. They begin to realize that they're just being used as a sex object through the supply of the dope. There really is nothing satisfactory going on. The adult children will begin to complain. Starts off with some minor complaints, usually about another child, and then it turns its focus onto the partner, the new person. The mother will be familiar with this. She'll know exactly how the system works. She'll run the other person into the ground, and then she'll come back to the fold as a victim. But what these people, these foolish people, fail to acknowledge is they're a victim of their own demise. That's what they fail to acknowledge. They're just a victim of their own demise. Nobody's done anything wrong to them. In fact, they've had people counseling them in the relationship. Look, could you please do that? Can we move on to this? This is all working out. We can move forward. And then they turned up pissed or off their head, and you go, well, that's not, you're definitely not mirroring me, so you must be mirroring somebody else. And I don't know who that is, but it ain't me. And a sign that things are coming to a close is an irrational reason for resolve, a reason that'll put you in a corner and give them a reason to say, well, I tried, when it wasn't really a legitimate effort at all. This gives them a sense, a return of their grandiose, I know how to fix things mentality, but they don't. Because if they had to fix things, they wouldn't have been on their own or with somebody else or whatever other silly means of justification they might use for the end of the relationship, which really boils down to just a reverse discard episode. A lot of people don't realize this. They continue to fight for the fool, while the fool is justifying themselves and reinstating themselves with the adult children, or whatever the situation is. It might be an ex or somebody they've met down at the cigarette shop or the chemist or something. Somebody from the past that they've mucked around with. And don't be surprised if you get a phone call from this person inquiring as to why you had a breakup. I've had this happen several times, and that's as far as I'll go with that at the moment. And it's not your place to indulge in those questions. You are not to engage that person. They're just trying to make themselves feel better, to try and work out why this person's a little bit odd. They're obviously unable to discern and work this out themselves. They haven't got the character to be able to do that, and they're just hanging on, codependent, desperate, and the narc will pick this up. Narcissists, as a rule, do like some abrasion in their relationship. It turns on their intimacy a little bit more. They get bored with the pleaser. They like a bit of discipline. They like a little bit of confrontation, and this keeps them energized. The narc, by way of resentment and revenge, will hook up with anybody after the breakup, even an old drunk or somebody of the same sex, or even a teen or a young 20-year-old male who's pissed or drunk at the local pub, who they'll take advantage of and predatorize. and be a predator and get pumped and dumped and spewed on and jizzed on in an attempt to make themselves feel better, but it really doesn't. It just sears the conscience even more. And it just goes from one silly decision to the next. Meanwhile, they're having to supply the dysfunctional children, which they've groomed to be that way. They've groomed to be that way because that gives them a sense of security. If they bugger things up, they've always got their scapegoat and golden child and whatever other scenarios there are to fall back on. It's not very complex once you understand how emotional enmeshment works and all the diabolical things that come along with it. These people are calculated. And they will push things with you as far as they can before they start to realize that you're onto them. Once they realize that you're onto them and that things are coming to a close, they have already proven themselves to be people of unresolved, so you're not going to get resolved. And they're used to being told to go away, particularly the older ones, as they're coming to a point in their lives where the chemicals, the addictions, the excuses, and the unresolved is really starting to tear away at their features and countenance. Rotten teeth, smelly body, facial features starting to age, crow's feet, nicotine around the lips and their fingers, the smell of tobacco in the hair all the time. Yeah, it's quite sad really, and they age, their aging starts to accelerate. They hit a certain age, 40, 45, 50, and things start to get out of their hands. Now my point is this: at 50 years old, if you are fortunate to find somebody that's got half a brain and the golden egg's been put in your purse and you wreck it, the future isn't going to be too bright for that person. It's just not. It's just not going to be too bright. And when you get to a place of negligence to this degree, where you've chosen not to be mature and developing with your relationship, then things are going to decline pretty quick. And they may never get that opportunity again. But the point of the fact of the matter of the narcissist is, once they get a new form of supply, initially their mind will move away from the golden egg. But the fad will wear off that pretty quick, because A-grade supply has a way of really embedding itself in the mind of the narcissist. It's hard for the narcissist to come to terms with how somebody can come to the point where they've seen through the facade, they've had enough, and they've walked away. That's something that the narcissist is not used to at all. They've been spoiled with their toxicity. They've become used to toxicity, and they think that other people will accept it as well. They don't really know any other way. Once they start to degenerate, oh, they know every way at the start. That's the love bomb. Boom. But once the love bomb actually explodes and all the confetti has run out, and the fad's worn off, and it's all gone to damage control. Anybody that's got any wisdom about them at all, that can see through the facade, will just up and leave. They warn them, they show them, they tell them, they lead them, they guide them, they look after them. But the narcissist is completely self-unaware. That's one of the evidences of a narcissist. Once they go into degeneration or devalue, I call it degeneration because they're degenerating mentally, physically, psychologically. Look at all the jelly blubbers, viewers. Look at all the jelly blubbers. And in so many other ways from the relationship that it's just a matter of time before you discard them or they discard you. And it's a cycle. As I said, they might meet somebody else, a shiny new toy, the Emperor's new robe, and wear that for a while, but they'll never, ever, ever be able to get over you. The reason being is you came and you were genuine, you performed, you understood, you were there, you turned up when you should have, you never let that person down once. And this all goes into their computer, psychological computer, feminine system that gives them the measure for what they're going to tolerate and what they're not going to tolerate. So while they'll go back to fruit that's fallen off the tree and onto the ground and has been eaten by worms and rotting, those types of people, they won't last. And this is a sign of how resentful, how full of resentment these people are. And that's why they end up where they are, the way they are. And it didn't have to be that way. It just did not have to be that way. It's concerning, it's troubling, and there's really nothing you can do to help these people. They've been given over by God to a reprobate mind. A lot of these people are Christian by pedigree and they've turned their back on their Christianity. And this gives them another grandiose sense of how important they are and that they know more than God and their way is better than God's way in the Lord Jesus Christ. And it just defiles their thinking even more. And they become demonic, soulish and earthly. But none of it lasts. It just don't last. People just will not tolerate that kind of mentality. And the psychedelics, the drugs, the alcohol and things are just not enough to push away the reality of the negligence that's going on in the minds of these people. They love bomb, the confetti runs out, they start to degenerate, they don't clean up the mess, they just leave the confetti lying around to keep you in a reminding state. And once you realize that this person's just put on a show and they can't even clean up the mess, that's when you start to realize that you have a degenerate and a person that's been handed over by God through their decisions to a reprobate mind. I'm Rev Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist. I hope you've enjoyed the scenery and this teaching on covert narcissism. They're the hard ones to work out, the covert ones. They're the hard ones to get past because they just will not relent. They stick to their mindset. They don't care who they harm, maim. They'll keep turning up for as long as you let them. And then when you say, no, I want to please, but you're not what you said you were, and I will not take the blame for whatever it is your delusion and fantasy is, you and your people. Good luck to you. Take your stuff and your shit and piss off. And more of you would be better off doing this. You've wasted years, you've wasted decades, some of you, and you can't get that time back. I'm heading for 4 months now post breakup, and I'm right. I have a few little flashbacks, nothing major. My consolation to that is I understood what happened, and that's just the way it was. And you just move on. You were okay before they come along, and you'll be okay after they're gone. But if you're worried about what they're doing now, don't worry about that. They're doing exactly the same thing as they did with you. And if you think that's exciting for someone, you need to open up your thinking a little bit further than what you have. These people have been given over to a reprobate mind. They don't know how to change it or fix it. And they'll use people for as long as they can while they're able to, until they're tired, worn out, sick, possibly got a serious disease from their chemicals and their careless sex, and life's just got a way of turning on these people. Before you know it, they're 50, 60, and it's all over. They just make do with what they have. They got nothing to show for themselves. They wasted their money on their habits. They supplied the children that they had and the way in which they groomed them to maintain their habits as well, which the parents are responsible for and a part of in most cases. And they just die. That's just how it is. They just fall away and die. I'm Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist. On the Central Coast, Brisbane Water, the Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia. Again, thank you for joining me. If you think this video had content that's possibly given you some insight or revelation, or inspired you to make some serious contemplations and some introspection and things for yourself, do show some love, or at least some interest, some encouragement or inspiration for me, and press the like button and the subscribe button, as I have over 1,000 videos out. I don't even know where they are, but YouTube's definitely doing something with them that people aren't aware of, and I need the subscriptions for those of you that do get to this point to be acknowledged. I'm Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison. on the Brisbane Water, Gosford, the Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia. Bye for now.